All right, here we are. We are studying for the Data Management Foundation's um, version 2 for WGU. And so I'm going to just kind of go over these 139 so you could play them while they're in the car or um, however you want to play them. You can listen to them, watch it. I'm not going to do any editing, so if I have to take a drink of water or whatever, you're just going to have to get over it. Hope this helps. Here we go. So the first one is going to be a blank is a column or group of columns used to identify a row, and that's going to be primary key. So a primary key is a column or group of columns used to identify a row. A blank consists of a single column, simple primary key. So a simple primary key consists of a single column. A blank consists of multiple columns. A composite primary. A composite primary key consists of multiple columns. All primary keys are necessary for uniqueness. When any column is removed, the resulting simple or composite column is no longer unique. What is this? It's minimal. So minimal is when all primary key columns are necessary for uniqueness, and a column is removed, the resulting simple or composite column is no longer unique. It's minimal. Next one is skipped ahead, but the blank constraint in a create table statement names the tables blank. The blank constraint ensures that a column or a group of columns is always unique and non-null. The primary key. So the primary key constraint in a create table in a constraint statement names the table's primary key constraint. So what a constraint is, if you remember, a constraint is something that stops. It puts a hold on it. So the primary key kind of stop in a create table that stops it from going is the statement names the table's primary key. So if you've seen this before, you'll see it name the primary key. It's the primary key constraint. So now the primary key constraint ensures that a column or group of columns is always unique and non-null. And non-null just means that it has to have a value in there. And it can't just be, empty or blank. So that's a constraint. It's just setting up rules and regulations for the table. That'll help you remember it. All right. And that doesn't really make sense. In a blank is a numeric column that is assigned an automatically incrementing value when a new row is inserted. An auto increment column. Okay, so they put the A there to just remember that, to kind of give it as a cheater. As far as like an auto increment column is a numeric column that is assigned an automatically incrementing value when a new row is inserted. So what an auto increment column is, real quick, and if I understand what they are, I'll kind of describe them to you. So just think of this as just, it's automatically assigns. Just imagine that something's entered, some data, and it's given in one of the columns, it's given a number, an ID, and it's just automatically given. It's a unique, usually a unique ID, and it's assigned. That's why it's auto. So that can help you. So increment means just building. So auto increment means an automation building of the number that's assigned. So just remember that should be an easy, simple one anytime you say that. So anytime you see something that says automatically incrementing, that's going to really help you out. The blank keyword defines an auto increment column. So auto increment again. Auto increment follows the column's data in a create table. So just saying again, the auto increment keyword defines an auto increment column. So that's what they'll write to make sure in the column data type when you're writing the SQL, when you're creating the table, or if you're updating and creating an auto increment, which I haven't seen, but I'm sure it could be done. But just for when you create a table, you can put in there, hey, I want it to assign itself its own ID each time, and it will, its own number or increment. So just remember that. I guess that just goes further into it. Next one, a blank is a column or group of columns that refer to a primary key. This is going to be a foreign key. So as you can think about this, if you've seen this in the Xi book, you'll see that dark circle, a circle like a bullet point, like on a resume or business form, where it'll have that dark circle period mark. That's usually the primary key. This key, which is the foreign key, is usually the circle that's not colored in, so it's just an outline of a circle. So a foreign key is a column or group of columns that refer to a primary key. And so you may see in another table, when they want to show a relationship to the tables so they can find each other, they'll attach themselves in one table with a foreign key that attaches it to the primary key in another table. So that's how they connect them. So hope that helps. Yeah. Foreign key is a column or group of columns that refer to a primary key. So pretty much what it's just saying is it's just saying, hey, I'm related, or I am part of or connected to the main primary key. Hopefully that's simple for you. Next one is blank requires key values must either be null or match some value of the reference primary key. So referential integrity. This one took me a while to get. It makes perfect sense to me. I just think that I just didn't remember it for whatever reason. But the best way to remember referential integrity is that it's saying that the values must be null, meaning like if there's no value in it, it can't just be blank. It has to say null, or it has to match a value of a primary key, which means that it has, like, if the primary key is like, ID1, ID2, ID3, as you go down the rows, um, it's got to match that. And if not, it needs to say null in the place that it says null. So that's what referential integrity is. Okay. Cool. A blank constraint is added to a create table statement with the foreign key. So what it is a foreign key constraint is added to create a table statement with the references and reference keywords. So a foreign key constraint. So remember, a foreign key restricting rules, just think about that like it's a restriction. Anytime you hear a constraint, a foreign key restriction constraint is added. So they add this to the create table. When they're creating the table, in those statements, they say, oh, but make sure it can't do this. And they add it with the references and references keywords. So they use references to say, hey, don't do this, don't do that, whatever. So you remember that, you're pretty good on the definition there. A blank, fully null foreign key is a simple or composite foreign key in which all columns are null. So yeah, self-explanatory there. Blank is a relational rule that requires foreign keys values are either fully null or match some primary key value. So referential integrity is a relational rule. So referential integrity, again, is just saying, hey, when you're referring to this, it needs to be up to par based upon this. It needs to be, that's what the integrity means, right? So referential integrity is a relational rule that requires foreign key values are either fully null or match some primary key value. And I think that the person that put together this set is just kind of, maybe they're just kind of digging a little deeper, because this does sound like the other definition. Maybe they had a problem or a question, they might have took the test a couple of times and they're just trying to get that deeper knowledge, which I understand. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So blank rejects an insert, update, or delete that violates referential integrity. So restrict. So restrict is um, making sure that when you do something and and it's going to violate the integrity that was set up on the table, it's going to say, no, you can't insert that, you can't update that, or you can't delete that. That's what restrict is going to do. So just remember that. Like a lot of times, it's not that we don't understand these words, referential integrity, things like that. It's just maybe we're not using these words commonly in our vocabulary or just not the way we think. And if we can kind of think about these words in a different way, it might help us come up with the right answer. So restrict, why is it restricting it? Well, we know with referential integrity that referential integrity wants to uphold it to what it's supposed to be. And so if you try to insert something that's going to mess that up, if you try to update, or even if you try to delete something that's not, that the table's been set up for you not to be able to do that, you're not going to be allowed to. So that is my understanding of that, and I hope that helps you. Next one, blank sets invalid foreign keys to null. Set null. So that kind of makes sense right there to set null, because if you set that, and remember, this is a command that you're going to type in SQL in your, when you type in your SQL statement, or whatever you're typing in. So sets invalid foreign keys to null. Set null. So if you put set null, when you're defining your foreign key, it's going to make sure that anything that's invalid, that's data, is going to say null, and it's not going to be left blank, or it's not going to give some wonky information. If you entered letters and it's supposed to be numeric value, it's going to say null. If it's empty, it'll say null. It won't tell you why it is. It'll just let you know, hey, that's something is it's either left blank or there's a problem. So just remember that. If you remember set null, it'll help you out. That's pretty much that. Blank sets invalid foreign keys to the foreign key default value. So set default sets invalid foreign keys to the foreign key default value. So that's just saying, hey, you're setting the default. And what it does is it takes that foreign key to the foreign key default value. And that's it. Just kind of, there's nothing more to that. Blank propagates primary key changes to foreign keys. Cascade. Okay, so I remember this one. This one tripped me up. There's definitely, I seen something on they're definitely going to go over this. They won't ask this exact question on the test, but I did see this one. And so what it's saying is, because you remember, sometimes you're not thinking the way that they're writing the question. So Cascade propagates primary key changes of foreign keys. What that means is Cascade means it spreads too. So Cascade is gonna propagate. Propagate is the word that spreads to. So it's spreading to the primary. So when you change something in the primary key and you cascade it, it's going to affect the foreign keys as well. And usually that's just to keep everybody on the same page. So the information still is relatable. The information that's connected doesn't get confusing. The primary key is still shaking hand with the foreign key that has the relationship that connects the table. So if your name was in the primary key and your name was in the foreign key table, these two tables, when you change, like maybe you changed your name from Scott to Scotty, well, Scotty is now in primary key and it cascades down to the foreign key, and now that's Scotty as well. It's just, instead of leaving it as Scott, which now the information would be kind of mixed up. So that's what Cascade propagates primary key changes to foreign key means to me. Sounds about right.